Welcome to Medieval Tales. Before we begin, do me one favor. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. It's always incredible to see where this community is tuning in from. We often imagine medieval bread as rough, tasteless peasant food, barely good enough to keep people alive. But what if I told you that medieval bakers actually mastered techniques that created bread with longer shelf life, better nutrition, and more complex flavor than most of what you find in a modern supermarket? No commercial yeast, no industrial mills, no preservatives. And yet, these methods kept entire communities fed through winters, famines, and sieges. In this video, you're going to discover 7 forgotten medieval bread-making techniques that have been lost to time, methods so effective they could revolutionize your baking today. And at the end, you'll learn a surprising truth about why we abandoned bread that was actually better for us. But let me ask you something first. Have you ever baked a loaf from scratch only for it to go stale or moldy in just a few days? Or bought Artisan sourdough only to realize it never quite tastes like the real thing? That's because we've lost the foundational knowledge medieval bakers considered essential. If you're tired of bread that spoils instantly or is loaded with chemicals, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm to share this with more people who care about real food. Now, let's uncover what history has been hiding. 1. Maslin bread, the survival loaf that never failed. Today we treat bread as either wheat or rye, white or whole grain, but medieval bakers understood something we've forgotten. Mixing grains wasn't desperation, it was deliberate food science. Maslin bread blended wheat and rye, usually somewhere between a 60-40 and 50-50 ratio. Wheat brought gluten strength and rye contributed enzymes that kept bread moist for weeks, and natural acids that prevented mold. Together, they created a loaf modern food scientists are only now beginning to respect. A 2018 University of Helsinki study reconstructed medieval Maslin recipes and discovered something remarkable. Mixed grain breads retained moisture 40% longer than pure wheat bread and resisted mold for up to 3 times longer than modern whole wheat loaves. Even better, wheat and rye together formed a more complete amino acid profile, making Maslin bread surprisingly nutritious. Medieval bakers didn't need lab results. They saw it with their own eyes. A family could survive an entire winter on Maslin bread and root vegetables. Pure wheat, despite its prestige, went stale quickly. Modern bakers chase $7 artisan loaves that go stale by evening. Medieval bakers created mixed grain bread that lasted longer, cost less, and truly fed people. That's not primitive. That's engineering. 2. Trencher bread, the edible plate system. Here's something that will transform how you imagine evil dining. They didn't just bake bread to eat, they baked plates. Trencher bread was a thick, dense, flat loaf baked specifically to serve as an edible dish. Throughout the meal, it absorbed juices, gravies, and sauces. By the end, it became a flavor-soaked piece of food that diners ate or gave to the poor. Zero waste, maximum efficiency, and from a preservation standpoint, it was brilliant. Trenchers were often made from older grain or day-old dough. They were deliberately under-risen and over-baked to create durability. Low moisture, long baking bread that could sit out for days without spoiling. This was a complete food system designed around utility, frugality, and care. English manor records from the 1300s show households baking trenchers in batches of hundreds, storing them for weeks at a time. Modern archaeological reconstructions found they remained edible for over 30 days. Compare that to your supermarket sandwich bread, full of preservatives, molding in less than a week. Medieval people weren't just eating smarter, they were living smarter. 3. Twice-baked ship's bread, the eternal loaf. Sailors in the medieval world faced a problem modern bakers rarely think about. How do you create bread that survives months at sea, in damp, rat-infested holds, without refrigeration or airtight containers? Their solution? Twice-baked bread, a technique that produced arguably the longest-lasting bread in human history. The dough was made extremely stiff, shaped into flat cakes or biscuits, and baked once, then cooled completely, and baked again for hours at a lower temperature sometimes even a third time. This drove out nearly all moisture, leaving a rock-hard loaf that was essentially immortal. Venetian and Genoese maritime records document ship's bread remaining edible for over a year. Portuguese voyages to India carried bread baked before departure and still consumed 6 months later. After crossing the equator twice, remove water, remove decay. It was that simple. Modern preppers spend thousands on dehydrators and long-term food storage systems. Medieval bakers achieved the same stability with nothing but fire, time, and patience. When it came time to eat, sailors soaked the brick-hard bread in wine, beer, or stew. It softened, absorbed flavor, and became a meal again. No waste, no spoilage, just bread that refused to quit. 4. Rye honey medicinal bread, the pharmacy loaf. Walk into a medieval monastery infirmary and you'd find something modern medicine has almost forgotten. Bread baked specifically for healing. Rye and honey bread combined two ingredients medieval physicians knew were powerful. Rye contained anti-inflammatory compounds and supported digestion. Honey, raw, unfiltered honey, was a potent antibacterial agent, but the real magic happened in the fermentation. Medieval medicinal breads were fermented for 3 to 5 days, allowing lactobacilli to create lactic acid, improving preservation and digestibility. Honey was added later to protect its medicinal qualities from heat. Monastery records describe breads for specific ailments, extra honey fennel for digestion, thyme and woundwort for respiratory relief, dense, rich loaves for the sick recovering strength. A 2015 University of Hohenheim study analyzing these recipes found measurable anti-inflammatory effects and improved gut support compared to modern whole wheat bread. These loaves didn't just fill the stomach, they healed it. The fermentation broke down compounds that cause bloating. The honey gave slow, stable energy. The rye delivered nutrients in a form the body could actually use. This wasn't just food, it was therapy. 5. Acorn chestnut forest bread, famine insurance. Here's a bread that saved entire populations during crop failures. Yet today the ingredients are dismissed as inedible. When wheat and rye failed, medieval communities turned to the forest. Acorns and chestnuts became flour, and the bread made from them kept people alive when nothing else could. Raw acorns contain bitter, toxic tannins. Medieval people mastered the art of leaching, grinding, soaking, and rinsing acorns until the bitterness disappeared. Chestnut bread was simpler. Chestnuts were dried, ground, and mixed with small amounts of grain. Mountain regions like Tuscany and Corsica maintained these traditions into the 20th century. Elders recalled chestnut bread providing better, longer-lasting energy for long days of work. Modern nutritional analysis confirms it. Acorn flour is rich in protein, healthy fats, and minerals. Chestnut flour delivers complex carbs that release energy slowly without crashes. These breads offered something we desperately need today. Food security that doesn't depend on fields, supply chains, or grocery stores, knowledge that could mean the difference between hunger and survival. 6. Ale barm bread, the original sourdough. Before commercial yeast or even traditional sourdough starters, medieval bakers had a secret weapon. Ale barm, the foam skimmed from fermenting beer. Every village brewed ale, every batch produced barm, and bakers knew it was the perfect leavening agent. This foam was packed with active yeast cells and infused with the natural antimicrobial power of hops. Dough, made with ale barm, rose predictably and developed complex, malty flavors. English records from the 1500s describe ale barm bread staying fresh for more than a week, even in damp climates that ruined other breads. It was stable, flavorful, and efficient. Brewing and baking weren't separate crafts, they were two parts of the same ecosystem. Modern sourdough bakers battle unpredictable starters. Medieval bakers skimmed perfect yeast from their beer vats and baked effortlessly. Nothing wasted, everything connected. 7. Salt-preserved dough, the perpetual starter. This might be the most practical forgotten technique of all. Medieval bakers didn't maintain sourdough starters with daily feedings and constant attention. They simply preserved a piece of dough with salt and stored it in a cool, dark place. The salt inhibited fermentation without killing the yeast, putting it into hibernation. When they needed to bake, they rinsed off the excess salt, mixed the dough with fresh flour and water, and let it come back to life. Monastery records describe dough lines maintained for decades. Passed from baker to baker, these cultures developed depth of flavor. Modern quick-rise techniques can't replicate. Make dough when you have time, preserve it, use it when you need it. No feeding schedules, no stress, just practical, brilliant bread making. The truth we forgot. Medieval bakers didn't see bread as a standalone product. Bread was part of a complete system, connected to brewing, connected to forests, connected to medicine, connected to community. These techniques took generations to perfect, and only minutes to abandon. When industrial baking promised convenience, we traded resilience for speed, nutrition for shelf-stable packaging, real sustenance for airy loaves filled with preservatives. The question isn't whether medieval bread was better. The evidence is overwhelming in most ways that matter. The real question is whether we're willing to relearn what we lost. If you're tired of bread that fails you, if you're ready for techniques that actually work, hit that subscribe button. Tell me in the comments which of these 7 breads you want to try first. I read every single one. This isn't just about baking, it's about reclaiming the skills that made people self-sufficient, skills that didn't depend on factories or corporations telling you what to eat. Medieval bakers understood something we're only now starting to remember. Real bread doesn't need an ingredient list you can't pronounce. It needs knowledge, time, and respect for the craft. And that's what we're bringing back.